Fall camp whispers, fall camp intel. Where are we going first? Let's go down to Auburn, Alabama. We have not talked about the Tigers yet. Hugh Freeze in town. We have talked about that, but we have not talked about the team. I want to talk to you about their quarterback situation for just a second. So I've done some digging on this over the past couple of weeks. Robbie Ashford was there last year. He played some games for him. When Hugh Freeze got hired, I looked at Ashford and I said, I could see this world where Hugh Freeze syncs up with Robbie Ashford and it's just perfect match at the perfect time. You know, think like a poor man's version of Hendon Hooker finding Josh Heupel. I didn't think it would be to that degree, but I thought, hey, this could be the best moment in Robbie Ashford's career. I don't feel that way anymore. And I think Pate Thorne's going to start at quarterback for Auburn. Pate Thorne, obviously, post-spring, came to Auburn via the transfer portal. And there was this whole mess up at Michigan State that led to that, so we detailed that when it happened. That's old news. There are 1,000,001 different things that can happen in a football program. And in quarterback competitions, it's no different. Sometimes guys are just more poised and accurate than the guy they're competing against. Sometimes there's something critical that happens in someone's personal life. Sometimes there's an injury. Sometimes you have off-the-field issues. All kind of different things can happen. So here's all I'm going to say on it. I think that from the time spring ended through the time that Pate Thorne got here via the portal and now to open fall camp, I think that maybe some off-the-field stuff, not disciplinary, that's not what I'm talking about, but I just think some things have happened down there, as they do in every program, that have probably led me to that opinion. You can tell I'm speaking in code. It's what I have to do sometimes. But I think Pate Thorne running with the ones down there is not a surprise to me, even though he is yet to play a game for Auburn. He didn't even take a snap in the spring for Auburn. It doesn't surprise me that he'll probably win that job. Now, you go further than that, and you start to ask yourself, okay, well, that's one guy Auburn got out of the portal. They got, 10 more, Jesse? I think 10 more four-star or higher-rated players. What are they going to do with all of them? Don't know. That's what we got to find out. But I think it just bears repeating, because I was someone in spring who thought, man, Robbie Ashford could really, really shine in this offense. He still could. We could still see that. At this time, I would not pick him to win that starting quarterback job. Next up, Oklahoma. Been waiting to get some whispers and scoop from Norman. Now, it's not going to be hard to find positive updates at Oklahoma because they were pretty bad last year. Roster situation was uniquely bad, certainly far worse than I think most people realized, including me, at this time going into the season. So defensive line depth, it sounds like, looks way different through a couple of practices out there based on eyeballs that have been on the field. Offensive line, specifically on that left side, looks a lot better. Now, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you know exactly how important that is. If you're not, just rest assured part of the reason they were so inept last year was due to some of the things I'm talking to you about right now. Quarterback position, you know, when Gabriel went down last year, they had nothing. They got blanked, I think 49-0 against Texas. So you need help at quarterback, but also depth would be nice too. And Dylan Gabriel going to start for them in all likelihood, but Jackson Arnold is looking very well, or very good as well. Now, again, this is all contingent on it being the first week of fall camp. To really just want guys to be healthy and make sure they still look like what they looked like the last time you saw them. It does give you reason, though, to look at that odds board over there. Oh, they're the Big 12 odds. Oh, Oklahoma's listed number 2. Really? But didn't they barely make a bowl game last year? Yep. And you've got their over-under win total at what? 9.5. And they're the second odds-on favorite to win the Big 12? Yep. Just means odds makers believe in them. And the more I hear out of camp, the more I'll probably start to believe in them, because that's the nature of a rebound team with a good roster in fall camp. Speaking of rebound team, I don't know how you rebound from an 11-win season, but that's what Alabama's trying to do. They're trying to rebound from an 11-win season. I've talked to you a lot about Alabama's secondary because I think it's going to be really good. I think it has the potential to be really good. Feel good about Kool-Aid at one corner. Feel good about Terry and Arnold, I think. At another corner position, they got a kid named Jaden Key out of the portal from UAB. Interesting times right now because they're pretty much cross-training him everywhere, trying to figure out where he fits in. But here's what I want you to pay attention to. So Caleb Downs comes in there. 5-star out of the state of Georgia. And even closer to signing day, we started to talk about how we were getting feedback on him that was pretty rarefied. People were comparing him to Minkah Fitzpatrick. No one ever does that around Alabama, is my point. No one ever does that, period, because the very few high school players who ever looked like Minkah Fitzpatrick. Caleb Downs, they didn't hesitate in giving him that comp. So I did something that is very foolish, and I don't recommend you do this. If you ever sit down with Nick Saban, don't be asking him to hype up a true freshman. But I broke my own rule, and I sat down with Nick Saban a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about a true freshman who has never played a down of football for Alabama yet. Colin, let's see what he said. When Minkah Fitzpatrick came to Alabama, I remember every coach that watched him, every analyst that watched him, they said, you don't see many come out of high school like him. And they said the same thing about Caleb Downs this last cycle. And you've seen him through spring. You've spoken glowingly of him. What kind of player could he be?
He'd be great. He's a very good player. I don't like to create these accolades and expectations for players. I like them to stay focused on the process and do what they need to do their job, be accountable to themselves and their teammates to create value for themselves and the team. So Caleb is a bright guy. He's kind of a smart guy that football is really important to, but he does everything to a high level in his life. He's a good person. He's a very good student. He's a student of the game, and he works really hard to get it right on the field. So, and he's conscientious. So I think he has a very bright future.
I tend to agree with that guy, Nick Saban. I think he's got a bright future, too. Let me tell you how bright I think his future is. He's a true freshman. It's his first fall camp for Alabama. He's the one fixed at one safety. He's the one who is penned in with the ones, and they're revolving other guys around him, trying to mix and match and figure out who's going to be where. You could have Christian Story back there. A former kid I covered down at Lynette. Really like Christian Story. He's been a little banged up. They ran Devonta Smith. Not the one you're thinking about. They got another one who plays secondary down there. They ran him with the ones yesterday. Earl Little is down there at the star position. Malachi Moore could move to the star position. So they've got a lot of really good names. All these names you've heard. I think that there is a 5- and 6-man rotation there, depending on the look for Alabama, that could play very, very good football for them. I'm talking about the kind that you're used to Alabama playing, not the kind that sees Tennessee hang half 100 on you because of mismatches. So let's monitor that. I know everyone's focused on quarterback there, and we are too, but I'm looking at the secondary. I also want to go to NC State. Tear this Post-it off. Pop it, just because. Devin Leary left. I think everyone knows that. Now, I think, unless I'm just reading the college football public wrong, I think that's where most people's knowledge of NC State ends right now. Now, if you've done your due diligence, God bless you. You know Brennan Armstrong transferred there from Virginia, but a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people hear Devin Leary left, forget about NC State. Well, here's the thing. Brennan Armstrong's pretty good. And not only did he transfer from Virginia to NC State, his offensive coordinator's there too. So it was pretty much like taking the two most important cogs of an offense and installing them at NC State, to where there's really not much of a learning curve. The learning curve is more in learning the personnel around him and, learning names and learning your way around campus. But as far as learning an offense, he doesn't have to learn anything. If anything, the guys around him have to learn an offense. He's a grad senior, so he's been around. He's a full-grown man, 6'2", 215. He knows how to play. He knows how to handle himself in college. And I'm saying all that to tell you, maybe there's not much of a drop-off at all here. And I think pretty highly of Devin Leary. Devin Leary was not protected all that well last year. So in the aggregate, man, maybe if I get half-decent offensive line play and, I don't know, bring the right coordinator-quarterback combo in, maybe NC State's a dark horse contender over there. A lot of people think that. Could be one of those classic cases where everyone bought stock in a team a year too early. Their over-under win total is 6.5. We detailed that last show. But that's what I'm keeping an eye on, because if you start seeing scrimmage reports and you start getting team insider feedback where people are saying, hey, they seem well ahead of the curve of whatever Vegas has set. They seem way better than whatever these preview magazines set. It's just because people overlooked that simple fact. Like, it's not always the end of the world because the quarterback who was there last year moves on. This is not the NFL. This is college football. Teams improve all the time with a new quarterback. So it's not like a foreign concept. So watch that with NC State. Also, Washington, I wanted to talk to you about for just a second. You know what? Hold on. Sorry about that, Colin. You can keep the Washington Super up. I just want to remind you of this. NC State, here's the reason I'm focused on them tonight. You want to find these teams that could be landmine teams. For betting purposes, for looking smart at the water cooler purposes, just for fun. I don't care. You live your life however you want to. But I have got a very important Post-it on my index finger here, and it tells me that If that team were to be better than people think, well, all of a sudden that's bad news for Notre Dame in week 2. And if this team, NC State, is better than people think, they have a bye before they play Clemson at home later in the season. So whomst knows? Next up, let's talk about Washington for just a second. Now, this may not matter a whole lot to you this year. It may not matter to anyone up there this year. Washington's in a good place when it comes to quarterback. You may think to yourself, yeah, that's not breaking news. I know. They got Penix Jr. back this year. Yes, they do. Did you know that Michael Penix Jr. is so comfortable in the system up there, they just give him scheduled off days? Like load management in fall camp for Washington? Well, that is the case. And I think one happened yesterday. You know what that meant up there? That meant they got to watch Austin Mack. And they got to watch 6'6", 210 pounds, former 4-star from Folsom, California. They got to watch him slinging around up there a little bit. Now, he was the number 73 overall player in the cycle, 2024 cycle. Yeah. So, I mean, he's new. Inconsistent is something that you hear with a lot of newcomers, and that's what they've said about him so far. But they also are quick to point out, yeah, the intangibles, we'll see. The tangibles got like a Joe Milton arm on him. Don't tell Joe Milton I said that, please. But got an absolute cannon on him. So athletically, there are very few who rival him. Also, you forget Dylan Morris is up there too, another former 4-star. So Washington's in a really good position at quarterback. And a lot of people consider Austin Mack the quarterback of the future. And hey, on load management rest day for Michael Penix, they even get to see him up there. So a lot of fall camp whispers and intel coming our way. We haven't even gotten to scrimmages yet. So when scrimmages happen, they're always closed to the public. But when scrimmages start to happen, and that's going to be like this coming week for a lot of them, that's when we'll really start to get some good scoop. So stay tuned.